March 1939. Moroccan tribesmen, the Moors, were among the nationalist troops who have been besieging Madrid for over 2 years. The Moorish trenches have become almost a North African village. To the east, they can see the rooftops of Madrid. In the city itself, nationalist supporters have for 2.5 years been trying to live unnoticed. Enrique, Miret, Magdalena had taken refuge in the Paraguayan embassy.
During those
2 and a bit years, we always spoke in whispers and kept the blinds drawn so nobody would know how many people were inside the one flat. There were between 50 and 60 of us.
For the Madrid population, Republicans and secret nationalists alike, hunger was now the worst torment. Even vegetable roots became a precious form of food. People stood all day in queues ready to buy anything which arrived in the denuded shops. Hunger and sheer exhaustion of wartime life were sapping the will to fight on. Negrin, the Prime Minister, had flown back to Spain. Surrounding himself by communists whom he promoted to a series of vital military commands, he established himself near Alicante. In what was left of the Republic, there were still 4 armies adding up to 500,000 men. The army commander in Madrid, Colonel Casado, believed that Negrin's reliance on the communists was a major stumbling block to winning peace concessions. He had put out his own peace feelers to the nationalists. Now, to back this, he launched what was in effect a coup d'etat in Madrid. Negrin and his colleagues were at dinner near Alicante when they heard Casado attacking them over the radio. Willie Forrest was there.
There was a telephone in the dining room, and Negrin went over to it and asked to be put through to Casado. He had to hang up for a minute and wait, but then the phone rang. Negrin went over. It was Casado on the line. "What's going on?" was the first words that I heard Negrin say. I couldn't hear, of course, Casado's replies, but from what Negrin said afterwards, it was quite clear, because what Negrin said was, "You've rebelled? Against whom, may I ask? Against me? Then consider yourself relieved of your command." And with that, Negrin slammed down the telephone and, turning to his ministers, he asked them to follow him upstairs for another cabinet meeting.
It was to be a crucial night for Prime Minister Negrin, a night that settled his fate, and the fate of the Republic. Clearly, Negrin's political position was collapsing. The communist leaders decided not to organize resistance to the Casado coup. Whether this reflected Stalin's current disinterest in Spain, and whether this clinched Negrin's decision to flee, remain open questions. At 3 in the morning, Willie Forrest watched as Negrin and his government filed out of their last meeting.
Well, that, as I said, was the end. We who were there didn't need to be told of the government's decision to quit. We saw the ministerial bags being packed. We saw Senor Garces, the police chief, going through his dossiers and tearing up papers. And we knew that Cisneros, the Air Force chief, had gone off in great haste to an airfield about Monova, about 20 miles from where we were, to organize a couple of planes for the government's escape.
As Negrin left Spain for the last time, chaotic shooting broke out inside Madrid. Casado's supporters fought communist units who did not know or couldn't believe that their leaders had decided not to resist the Casado coup. Once again, the Republic was tearing itself apart. For 2 weeks, Casado attempted to negotiate an honorable peace. His efforts were to prove as vain as Negrin's. Franco broke off contact with him. Casado now had no choice. He ordered the Republican armies to raise the white flag and surrender. The Nationalists, in the end, never had to fight to capture Madrid. Unopposed, they walked in.
I woke up and I heard shouts, and I thought somebody's gone mad and now we're going to be in real trouble, just when the war is about to finish. And then I came out and I heard shouts, "Viva España, Viva España." And I said, "What are you shouting for? You've all gone crazy." They replied, "No, Madrid has been liberated. The war is over." And then we all jumped from the balcony into the street.
I took my brother with me, and we went out to see what was happening in the streets. I reckon that even some of those who'd taken part in the events of the 14th of April 1931 were now the ones who climbed onto lorries. I think they were more or less the same people. Or at least, there were just as many of them, and they were equally enthusiastic.
As Franco's soldiers trudged into the streets of Madrid, Palanque's supporters poured out of hiding. Republicans, trying to escape from nationalist vengeance, headed for the port of Alicante on the southeastern coast, chosen as the main evacuation point. On March 28th, as Madrid fell, this British ship left Alicante. On board were some 500 Republicans, mostly leading figures. Left behind were about 20,000 refugees who were swarming into the harbour area, hoping desperately for ships to rescue them. For these three survivors, Narciso, Julian, Eduardo de Guzman, and his sister-in-law, Encarnacion Bueno, what followed is an indelible memory.
Well, we were looking out towards the horizon. We could see a few lights. Some people were saying that they were our boats, that they were getting nearer.
This was the worst torture of the harbour, the torment of hope, thinking we were going to be saved, when there was no salvation possible.
I remember every single moment. Each was more terrible than the one before. Every minute that passed without the boats arriving made me believe less and less in boats, in anything. My son was saying, "You'll see, Mum, you'll see, we'll get away." But when the hours passed and no boats came near, I stopped believing in anything.
By March 30th, Italian troops had occupied the fortress overlooking the harbour. The Republicans crowded along this quay were at their mercy. The last boats had gone. Now there was no hope, only fear.
I was sitting there, my son next to me. We were talking. We knew already that the boats were not coming. Along came a man of about 40, strong, good-looking, a man who looked in really good health. He came quite close to me. I didn't realize what was happening. I heard a shot. He'd shot himself and fallen down right there. I totally lost my calm then. My son was saying, "Don't be frightened, Mother. Don't be scared. You'll see a lot more of this here, but don't be frightened." But of course I was scared stiff. I don't know what I thought. Perhaps that they would bring out machine guns and finish us all off.
Nationalist troops moved into Alicante to reinforce the Italians. The helpless masses in the harbour knew that they would be rounded up the following day. For the anarchists amongst them, one question remained to be settled in their last hours of liberty.